everybody. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. This week, we are going to look at lessons 45 through 48. So let's get started. This week, you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheets, the math card games manual and the game cards, the place value cards, and the dry erase board. This week, we are going to continue to work on rounding, and we will also talk about large numbers. There will be a review lesson this week so that you know that the math concepts that your child is learning is being retained, and you will also find out where you may need to be reviewing some material. Go ahead and turn to lesson 45. If your lesson manual was printed in 2015 or before, there is a correction listed on our corrections page so that you're going to want to make those changes prior to starting this lesson. Take a look at the warm-up section. For the next week or so, your child is going to be doing a number puzzle for their warm-up. Now, for many children, these puzzles are fun, but for others, it can be a little challenging. And if you find that your child is getting a little frustrated, you can go ahead and give them hints or sit down and work with them while doing the puzzle. You may want to actually have a timer set, and so have them work independently for a period of time and then finish the puzzle after that period of time is ended, like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Let me read through the instructions in the explanations so that you know how the word puzzles work. The instructions say this: the sum of the first 3 numbers in a row equals the last number in that row. The sum of the first 3 numbers in a column equals the last number in that row. You can check your puzzle when you are done by adding all the rows and columns. Just check that final number. Look at the section called rounding to tens. Here, you're going to give your child the place value cards and then have them build to the number 73, as you see in the middle of the first page. So they'll build that 73 using the place value cards. Then you're going to ask your child to round that 73 to the nearest 10. If they're struggling with that, you can actually have them use the abacus to help them see that number a little better. Once your child has determined that 73 rounds down to 70, then you're going to ask your child to build to the number 273 and round that number to the nearest 10. Now, hopefully, your child will be able to see that 73 is still being rounded to 70, even if there's a 200 in front of it. So the rounded total for 273 is 270. Now, there are several other examples that you can practice with in your lesson manual. If your child continues to struggle with this or they don't quite grasp it, then you will probably want to provide extra samples for them to practice. Look at the section called rounding to hundreds. You're going to have your child build the number 584 and then ask, is 584 closer to 500 or 600? Then you're going to want to have your child find the place value cards that shows the nearest 100. You're going to want to do the same thing with the number 129. Now, if you need to, you can ask your child if 129 is nearer the 100 or the 200. Now, you may also want to help your child determine what 200s are the option for rounding. One thing that I did with my child is say what 200s is 129 in between. So 129 was in between 100 and 200. Sometimes just changing the wording just a little bit will help your child in understanding the concept overall. Then your child is going to round the number 548, slightly different from the number that's listed on the top of the second page. 548, you're going to round that to the nearest 10 and then to the nearest 100. Now, when my daughter did this, she would get confused with rounding. She would just get a little lost. She has dyslexia, dyscalculia, and things, so she would sometimes get lost. So one thing that kind of helped her stay focused, which place value that she's considering to round to, is we actually underlined the place value that she was rounding. So, for example, when rounding 548 to the nearest 10, I would ask her which number is in the tens place, which is 4, and then she would just put a little underline underneath that 4, and that kind of helped her focus on what place value was being rounded to. And then when we rounded 548 to 100, she would then underline the 5, again helping her remember which place value we were rounding to. So that you might find that helpful with your kids. Take a look at the section called rounding to thousands. Here you're going to do the exact same thing, except for you're going to round to the thousands place. And again, you may want to go ahead and ask the question, which thousand is this closest to? Once you complete those activities, your child is going to work through worksheet 29. Now there is a section to the right of that section under the explanations that talks about that little squiggly equals sign. Here your child is going to learn from their worksheet what that squiggly equal sign means. And in case if you are interested, that it really means that it's about. But the formal term for the squiggly equal sign is called approximate equality. So on the worksheet, your child is going to be given the number 649, and its rounded approximate equality will be 650. For the conclusion section, you may actually need to write the number on the board to help your child see the number in order to do the appropriate rounding. There is not a specific math card game listed for this particular lesson. So you are going to want to pick either a rounding war game that you played last week or play a multiplication math card game to help your child continue working on their multiplication math facts. Go ahead and turn to lesson 46. The warm-up section has another number puzzle to be solved. Again, if your child is struggling with these number puzzles, have them work on it for a couple minutes on their own and then come together with them to help finish the rest of it. This lesson is actually going to be using most of worksheet 30 and solve some of those word problems during that lesson. Look under the section called Problem 1. Notice it's going to have you ask your child to read through the problem 2 times. That's going to help your child learn to get into the habit of absorbing all of the information provided in the word problem. The lesson manual also has your child solving the problem 1 on their own and then discussing their answer with you once they've finished solving that problem. Now, you may find that your child got the problem completely wrong, and that's okay. Just having them talk you through how they solve the problem will do a couple things. One, you can see where their error is and point that out at that time. And you can also see the pattern where they're kind of lacking in their thinking through. So that will help address that as well. Sometimes as your child is talking it through, they're going to catch their own error, and that's great. Now, you may find that your child solved this problem by adding those full numbers first and then rounding. So the numbers that they have here are 5,015 and 6,156. You can approach this by saying, you know, when you solve this problem, you solved it by adding those 2 large numbers, but you can use rounding to make these numbers a little easier. So you would round the 5,015 to 5,000, and you would round the 6,156 to 6,000. So 5,000 plus 6,000 equals 11,000. Now, isn't that the same answer as what you got? But isn't that a lot easier? So kind of guiding them through how to think the easiest way of solving this problem. Now go ahead and look at the section called Problem 2. Again, you're going to have your child read through the word problem 2 different times. Get your child into the habit of doing that. As a side note, you're also going to want to get them in a habit of reading instructions more than once, more than just reading word problems, but instructions on worksheets, not just in math, but any of their classes. This is a fabulous study skill, learning skill to learn. Once your child has read through that problem, have them solve it. If you need to, you may want to remind them of the easier way to solve the problem. You can do that by saying something like, remember how we made the last problem a little easier? Well, you may want to try it again for this problem. Now on the top of the second page, you're going to have your child complete the remaining 3 word problems on the worksheet. You might want to spot check their answers as they go. So as they complete one problem, check that answer before they go on to the next problem. You will definitely want to do this if your child is either struggling with this concept or if they are just a general struggling learner. There is not a math card game for this lesson, so you're going to want to either play a rounding game or maybe play a multiplication math card game to help your child learn those multiplication math facts. Make sure you're keeping up on those multiples. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 47. Now, if your lesson book was printed in 2015 or before, there is a correction listed for this lesson. So make sure that you apply all of the changes to your materials before you teach this lesson. This is a review lesson to help you know what your child is learning, what they're retaining, and what they might need to be reviewing. As I have done before, I'm going to include the problems of the review lesson and which lesson you can review that material from. For problems 1 through 3, if they've missed those or struggled with them, you can go ahead and play some math card games to practice those math facts. If they struggled with problem 4, you're going to want to review lesson 6 or again play math card games to review the math facts, depending on what their problem was. For problem 5, if they struggled with their multiples of 9, you can review lesson 19. If they struggled with the idea of division, you can review lesson 35. If your child struggled with problem number 6, review lessons 40 and 41. If your child struggled with problem number 7, you can review lessons 8 and 9. If they struggled on any of the sections for that table in the middle of the worksheet, you can review lessons 44, 45, and 46. For the next group of lessons, determine what their struggle is, because there's all kinds of different things that's going on in those problems. So if it's a math fact issue, then you're definitely going to want to play math card games to review and learn those math facts that they were struggling with. If they struggled with the commutative property, you can review lesson 18. If they struggled with the associative property, review lesson 24. And if they struggled with the distributive property, review lesson 41. For the section called Solve the Equations, you can review lessons 40 and 41. And for that last final word problem, you can review lessons 45 and 46. If your child missed a significant amount of problems on a particular section or a particular concept of problems, you will definitely want to go back and review those lessons or play math card games to fill in any of those gaps. If your child missed only a couple of questions or problems, go ahead and move on, but keep an eye out for future difficulties. Now remember, the goal of these review lessons is so that you can keep track of what your child is retaining. You're kind of doing a spot check on their math facts and making sure that they're learning the concepts that you're teaching. The math card game is listed on the top of the second page, and it's called Ring Around the Products. And there is a blog for this game, and you also played this game in lesson 33. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 48. Again, as part of the warm-up, you will have that number puzzle again. Handle this problem as you have in the previous days. The warm-up will also have you review place value. So this lesson is based on place value. So if your child is sluggish or struggling with this, you might want to add a few additional questions in this warm-up section just to kind of refresh their mind on place value. Now take a look at the section called Composing Large Numbers Using 1000. This activity will help your child learn how to use the place value cards for large numbers. Because our place value cards only go up to the thousands, we need to learn a different way to use them for this particular lesson and for the next couple lessons. Let me show you how this lesson works. So here are the examples as shown under Composing Large Numbers Using 1000 section. The first activity your child is going to do is to build the 2000 by using a 1000 card and the 2. And here you're going to your child's basically just going to put the 2 over the 1 to create 2000. From there, your child is going to build bigger numbers. So we're going to build 13,000. Your child is going to need to first build 13, like that, and then place that over top of, if I can get it, over the 1,000. So it'll look like that. The next number your child is going to build is 87,000. And again, your child is going to need to build the 87 first, and then put that over the 1,000 card. There we go. Having problems with that 1,000 card. And the next example is the 50,000, and this one's an easier one because you just basically pull the 50 place value card and put that over the 1. Now, they're going to want to slide it over, so make sure that they realize they're only covering up the 1. So 50,000 goes over that 1. And the last example I'm going to show you is the 648,000. So you're going to need to build the 648, oops, and you're going to put that over the 1,000. Take a look at the top of the second page under the section called Writing Large Numbers. Here your child is going to learn how to use the comma to separate the groups of numbers when writing large numbers. Now, when I learned this concept, I was taught specifically to count numbers from the right and then put a comma, and then another 3, comma, and then another 3, comma. However, when I taught my kids, I would tell them that they would need to put a comma when they say the place value, the larger place value title, like 1,000, million, or trillion. Let me show you what I mean. So here we have the number 123 trillion, 456 billion, 789,000, and then no remaining numbers. So here, as I'm saying those numbers, saying that title, like trillion, billion, thousand, is where I'm putting my comma. The next section has your child building large numbers and adding additional hundreds, the tens and the ones to it. So let me show you how that will work. The next activity I'm going to walk you through is listed on the top of the second page of the lesson, where we're actually adding numbers together. Here we have the 648,000 plus 222. The first step is to build those large numbers. So we're going to build the 648,000, and then we're going to build the 222. Now we're going to line this side of this number, because this is not 1,000, these are hundreds, 222. We're going to line this side on this side, and we're going to build that number, 648,222. We're going to do the same thing for the next activity, the next example, 257,000. So here we have 257,000, and we're going to add to that 14. Again, we're going to line up this side with this side, and we end up with 257,014. Now, many children want to squish this together, and they actually end up with 25,714. They need to remember that this is the 1,000 here, 257,000. And then 14, we have no hundreds. That 0 is extremely important, and it is important that your child understands that. 257,014. Once you have your child work through those activities, you're going to give them worksheet 32. In the middle section of this worksheet, your child is going to match a written number with the correct digit number. And this is a great activity to help you know if your child needs any extra work or review on place value. If you find that your child does need to work a little bit more on place value, you can spend an extra day working through this lesson. You can change up the numbers a little bit just to kind of make it a little fresher. Next week, you will continue to work with large numbers and place values. You can also wait and see how they do on that as well. There is the suggested math card game for this lesson is called Rows and Columns Game. This game is fun and easy, and it will also help your child review their addition skills. However, you may also want to include a multiplication math card game as well, especially if they're not doing well with their multiplication memory. That brings me to this point. How is your child doing with multiplication math facts? Because each child learns differently. I can't give you specifics of where your child should be at this exact point. However, if you have an average learner in your home, your child should have at least the easy multiples down, and that would be the 1s, 2s, 5s, and 10s. And they should be well on their way to having have learned the 3s, 4s, and 6s. Those are kind of like the medium difficulty ones. They should also have a decent start on the harder ones, the 7s, the 8s, and the 9s. If they are not up to speed on any of those multiples, then you're going to want to spend some time and working on the ones that they're struggling. One thing that I did, I think I shared this in a previous video, but in case you didn't watch that video or you have forgotten, what you're going to want to do is pick a multiples math fact family for the week. Get those learned. Play tons of card games on that one math fact family. Then the next week, pick another multiple math fact family and work on those. As always, if you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, if your child is struggling with multiplication or something else, give us a call or email us. We are here to help. I look forward to seeing you next week when we go over lessons 49 through 52. Have a great day, everybody.